I was only going to meet with Gurudev, 97, 98, 99. Each time he came, I would go and meet with him. I would hear him a little bit, some Harikatha, I'd make a donation. But I never got involved with the sangha. Some things happened in the late 90s and early 2000s that started to gradually make me shift away from being so attached with ISKCON. In the meantime, I was having my own struggles trying to improve my spiritual life. And I was praying sometimes to Prabhupada that I'm not doing very well. Please help me. So one night I had this dream. Srila Prabhupada came into my kitchen on this table where we had the pictures, where we made the offerings. But he was standing there. I walked into the kitchen and there he was standing with his cane. And he pointed his cane at me. He said, "By now you were supposed to be a realized soul. What happened?" And then he walked out of the house. I went, "But Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada." And I was crying. I woke up like crying. So then, about a week later, or maybe right at that time, Gurudev was there in Alachua. So I decided I had to go see him, but I was always so busy, and finally I just went over there to Jalakar's house to see him. But I had planned a business trip that day. I was supposed to go on a business trip. So I went there in the morning to go see him. And I said, I wanted to see you. And I was thinking in my mind, he's a pure devotee, I should go and see him. I should go there and see him. You know, Prabhupada just chastised me in this dream. I should go and see him. Maybe he can give me some mercy. So I went and I offered my obeisances, and then I offered him a donation, and then I said, you know, thank you for coming. And so he said, "Are you going to stay here and listen to me?" I said, "Well, I have to go on a business trip. So I'm planning to leave this morning to go on this business trip." "Oh, you can't stay here and hear me? You won't hear from me?" "No, Gurudev, Narayan Maharaj, I would hear from you. I would hear from you, but I would hear from you. Sure, I want to hear from you, but I have to go on this business trip." "Why? Why? You know, why? Why you are going business trip?" "Well, you know, I have to make money," and you know, he said, "Look at all these," and he pointed to all the Indian men from Houston. "They all have business. They all left their business to come here and hear me. Why you are not hearing me?" "Well, you know," he said, "I know you are a senior disciple of Swami Maharaj, but you are not preaching. You are simply making money and taking care of your family. Why you are doing like this? And I know that you are also not chanting, and you are not following. Why? Why you are doing like this? You should be doing, you are a senior disciple of Swami Maharaj." And he started shouting at me. And he's shouting, "You should not do like this. You should be preaching. You should be doing this." And while he was shouting, I was looking at him, and then I could see that vision from the dream. I saw Prabhupada standing behind him with the cane, and I realized Prabhupada is chastising me. So I just smiled at him and I said, "Okay, I won't go on my business trip, I'll stay here." Very good. He said, I'm sorry. He's always so kind. I'm sorry. I don't mean to shout at you. I said, no, I needed to be shouted at. It's okay. He said, but I want to help you, and you need to stay here and hear me. So then I went to hear him that night, and I was listening to him lecture. And I was listening to everything that he was saying, and I was thinking, a lot of what he's saying, Gaura Govinda Maharaj used to tell me when I was living with him. So, these are the same things that I've heard before from Gaura Govinda Maharaj, all these things he's saying. So then I went home that night, I was sleeping. I woke up in the middle of the night, about 3 in the morning. I started to think, why do I have a problem? This was my question. Why do I have a problem with this concept that you have to hear from the sadhu? You know, Prabhupada always used to tell us, read my books. He told me to read the books. This has always been the standard, you know, Vani is more important than the Vapu, you know, like this. So I started meditating on it, trying to figure it out, you know. So one thing came to mind that, well, you know, Vyasadeva, he wrote the books, but then he wasn't fulfilled until he heard from Narada Muni. So there's some evidence that you have to hear from the sadhu. And then I thought, but after Prabhupada left, I read all of his books. I learned so much during that period. I became very competent in my knowledge of the Shastra all during that time. So, you know, why can't we read the books? Why do we have to hear from the sadhu? And then something hit me, and it was like a thunderbolt. All that time that I had been reading those books, I was living with Gaura Govinda Maharaj and associating with him. And he had been instructing me. He would read to me from Goswami's literature in Bengali and Sanskrit, and then he would explain it to me in English. So I was actually under his guidance, under his care, and he was nurturing me as a Shiksha Guru. So I thought, wow, the whole time that I did that, I was with Gaura Govinda Maharaj. And then I asked myself, since I left Gaura Govinda Maharaj, have I made any advancement? No. I haven't made any advancement at all. I'm still stuck back where I was when I was living with him. I haven't made any progress. And it was like a thunderbolt. Oh, I have to associate with the sadhus. If I don't hear from the sadhus, I can't make any progress. How did I miss this? How did I miss this? What was the matter with me? Why didn't I see it? I ran into the bathroom, I took a shower, and I put on clean clothes, and I ran over to Gurudev, and it was like 4:30 in the morning, and I burst into his room, and I'm rolling on the floor in tears. Please forgive me, I didn't understand. Please forgive me. He's laughing, and he said, oh, okay. So then, that's when I started to associate with the sangha. This was January of 2003. So the time I had seen him before was 96 in Mathura, and then I used to see him every year when he'd come and visit. So in 2003, then I finally surrendered, you know. Actually, he sort of forced me to surrender.
The early days of Gurudev was amazing because he had time for us. You know, it was very intimate too. There were about 35 brahmacharis in the mat, maybe, and 5 Westerners. Myself, Sripad Prabhu Janava, then Vishaka Didi was there, and Madan Mohan Prabhu was there, and Indulekha. So there were about 6 of us. And Uma Didi, like that. So, but you know, darshans are very intimate. And Gurudev was so personal and intimate always. Like he would take his prasadam first. He goes to his room after his bath and massage and then bath. And then he goes to his room and they bring the prasadam to him. And then everybody else gets served. Then he comes out after he finishes prasadam and he walks around and, you know, outside his room he looks to see everyone's happy, they got what they need, and he say, bring some more this and that. So personal. It was cold. It was winter time, so he would bathe in the noontime. You know, he always bathed in noontime anyway, but then he would bathe outside because his bathroom in the back was very dark. You know, downstairs bathroom? The one that says for Maharaj only? Very dark and cold and dingy. So he would bathe in the sunshine by the pillar. This is the courtyard kind of grating and 4 pillars. So he would bathe at that pillar. And I, you know, we could see everything, and I was like so greedy for his bath water. So I would go, you know, and Paramahansa said, no, 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 Maharaj will be angry and he will beat you. And I didn't hear it. I just went and just scooped up the water and, you know, into a cup, and, you know, Gurudev's on the other side of the pillar. And then one time he saw me, he said, what are you doing, you know? But, and then he smiled and laughed. Intimate times with Gurudev. I remember even Prabhuji, you know, I think Vishaka, Madan Mohan Prabhu, at that time they were not married, but they came together and they're staying in the same room, and he was ill with diarrhea for like 3 weeks. And so she had to cook for him separately. He couldn't take any spicy, anything oily and fried. And anyway, to cut a long story short, they were having a hard time because they had no cooker, burner and all that. So she just had a pot on a electric heater that she turned on its side, and she put the pot on it and she cooked on there. And I saw that situation, I thought, oh my God, you know, I gotta help. I gotta help. And I also had a background in holistic health and healing. So I thought I'll cook for him what's favorable for his thing. So anyway, I was doing that and Prabhuji came in the door. He just doesn't knock or anything, he just opens the door and he comes in, surveys the room, you know, with his eyes, and then he said, this is thiefly. This is thiefly. You offer to one picture, and Gurudev is downstairs and Thakurji is downstairs. You're offering to picture. This is like being a thief. And we all thought, what should we do then? You know, he said, tomorrow you will cook and we'll offer it to Gurudev. I'll cook for Gurudev. And I just arrived there a few days and I thought, oh my God. Anyway, and then he changed his mind. He said, why only for Gurudev? Cook for everyone. So those were the early days. It was very sweet and intimate. I remember, this isn't Gurudev Katha, is it? But it's to do with the whole mood of the mat, like Uma Didi. So Mother Maharaj, she was Naveen Krishna then, he would always be like Narad Muni, you know, like causing problems. He said, Indian rule, you cannot take before your Shiksha Guru. So you must, you know, and he was inferring that Uma Didi is my Shiksha Guru. So I should make sure that she's eaten completely, take her plate, take her remnants, and then and eat her remnants, and I will take. And of course they would never allow that, you know? So that kind of thing, you know, it's an Indian rule, and Umadi is, and like Prabhuji would never have photos of him, you know, ever. And he says, no, you must, you know? He would like instigate me to do things, and then he would laugh and laugh so much. But all these things were actually favorable because it brought us so much closer and so much opportunity to serve the devotees intimately.
Somehow, by giving also a lecture on Rupa Shiksha, very simple, and having this kind of relationship, he captured my heart. So I follow him again in England, and he will still do this, come to me, and he said, like say in my ear, "Are you happy?" and stuff like this. So I became very attracted, and I start calling him Gurudev practically immediately. Then 6 months later, I met him again in Germany. Then he totally ignored me, and at one point they had this gathering in one room of devotees, and one devotee left, and Madhav Maharaj let me in, so I came in, paid my obeisances, and then Gurudev pointed at me, he said, "Where did he come from?" And I stood up and I said, "Well, Madhav Maharaj let me in." He said, "Get out!" At once, get out here. So then I left, and I felt crushed and rejected, and I waited at his door, and when he came out, he put his hand on my heart, and he said, "Always think of me and read Jeva Dharma." And many times after, it was the same kind of relationship of not knowing when he will accept me or reject me, like Mahaprabhu was saying, whether you embrace me or you reject me. And I felt this with Gurudev so many times. Like there will be many devotees, and he will say to everyone, "How are you? How are you? How are you?" Then he will skip over me, and he will ask, "How are you? How are you? How are you?" And I felt so frustrated, but at the same time, the next day he will come and he will put his hand on my heart, and I will become completely, my mind would be completely blank. I would not know what to say or what to think, because it was so unexpected. And one day also in Holland, he was coming out of his room, and so I was so accustomed of having this kind of relationship with him that he will just ignore me completely. So I was prepared to this. Then he asked the brahmachari next to me, "How are you?" And somehow this brahmachari was not feeling too well, so I said, "Not good, Gurudev." So Gurudev was not pleased, so I'm not happy with this. Then he asked me, "How are you?" So then I was so happy he asked me, so I said, "Very good, Gurudev."
Another year where I had also committed myself to a lot of different sevas, but one thing that I was really attached to, that at the end of class every day, was lining up with the queues of people and you know, waiting to catch a moment with Gurudev, like a eye-to-eye moment, you know, those piercing eyes that soothed everything. And it had been a really stressful year that year in Badger, and the festival was everything that we looked forward to. It was the culmination of all our tears and our endeavors and our anxieties culminated in this festival of this whole year comes as an offering in this festival time. So we would just wait and run ahead of the others, and if he walked past and didn't catch you, no matter, you ran around to the next point in the queue, waiting and waiting. And you know, that year, every single day, he would just look directly at the person standing right next to me, and I would run ahead and he would do it again, and he would look right into the eyes of the person right next to me, and I was like, "Gurudev, are you mad with me or something?" And he would get to his room and he would be, "Oh, my dear darling sons and daughters, we will meet again tomorrow. Jai Jai Shri Radhe," and in he'd go into his room, and I would just feel like, why don't you want to look at me? What have I done? So every day I was feeling like, I want to do a bit more, something more. There's something I'm not giving that he doesn't want to look at my face. And every evening I would go back to see Shanti Didi in her room, and I would tell her how I was feeling, and she said, "There," and she would pull out a little pot, and in her pot was a cherry pip from Gurudev's plate, and she would give it to me and say, "Here, take this." And I'd put it in my mouth, and I would carry on complaining how my Gurudev doesn't love me enough, until that cherry pip was raw, And then I would put it in a little pouch to keep, because that's what I did with my maha from Gurudev. And this happened every single day of the festival. And on the last day, I'd had enough. I was burnt out and just out of tears even. And Shanti Didi came early that day, and she found me. And she had just come from Gurudev's kitchen. And she looked at me. She took my hand and put this cherry pip in my hand, and I looked at it. And there was another devotee there who saw this, and I can't remember who it was now. But she said, "Wow, is that from Gurudev?" And I was like, yeah. I said, "You can have it. I've had one every day. You can have it if you like." And then she looked at me and she went, "What? You have had one every day?" And I was like, "Yeah." Shanti Didi goes and waits for Gurudev's maha from his plate, and she's like, "In this festival there must be close to 200, maybe 300 devotees here. And I'm imagining Gurudev can't eat that many cherries in a day. And you're telling me that every day you've had one of the cherry pips that has come from his mouth on his food plate, and you've had one every day." And again, in that moment, I realized just how much my Gurudev gives me his attention. Years later, after him entering into samadhi, and everyone was feeling so much turmoil of what was happening with the sangha, and were we being pulled apart, and when would we come together, and I was contemplating whether or not to go for Navadvip Parikrama. How would it be? Where would we go? Who would be leading? And I had a dream. And in that dream, we were in the Pandal in Navadvip, and all the sannyasis were bickering and arguing with each other. And I was standing there feeling so lost that I didn't know who to listen to and who to be with and who to associate with. And I saw Gurudev walking past, and I was like, "Oh, you're here." And he looked over at me and he said to me, not directly, he said it in a way where I could hear his voice in my head and in my heart. So his lips didn't move, his eyes looked over, and I heard his voice say, "Remember the cherry pip." And then he disappeared. And I sat and I thought about that past time that had happened with him and what was going on now. And I realized that Gurudev's mercy is never unavailable to us. His affection, his love, his closeness, he will always be giving to us. Maybe it might not be directly, eye to eye, hand to head, words to ear. It may not have that tangible look about it that we in our conditioned state always hanker for, because we're so used to that being the look of love. It may be as indirect as this cherry pip coming from his mouth to mine, from his meditation on his prasad seva to mine. But it will always be there. And for anyone who perhaps didn't have or feels they hanker for more association with Gurudev in that sense, in that tangible sense, or for someone who feels like maybe they feel, "Oh, I came just too late to have his association." No, he's still available, and those cherry pips of mercy can come to you in any way, shape or form. And if we don't see it now, he'll send a messenger to come and illuminate that for you so that you do see it. If not straight away, then in time to come. So what a hopeful journey we have in this relationship with our Gurudev, that it will never tire, it will never diminish. It only has room to grow to a level that we don't have the eyes to see, but like the analogy that Srila Prabhupada uses, you know, you can't see the wind, you can't hold the wind, but you can feel its effect. And Sri Guru is like that, you know. Maybe even if we had his darshan, we didn't have the eyes to properly see him. Even now we can hear his Harikatha or read his Harikatha and we don't have the eyes to see it, but we can feel its effect. And that's one of my strongest remembrances of Gurudev now in this time of separation from his Vapu and entrance into making a relationship with his Vani.